4 types of characters who sustain athletic injuries in feature films: heroes, cowards, clowns, and victims. And because life imitates art, what we're talking about is not just fiction, because we see these same characters appear in real life. And just as Hollywood continues to influence the way athletes are coached, Hollywood continues to influence the way coaches perceive injuries and the way they treat injured players. Some sport injuries can be devastating. They can end games, seasons, or even careers, and in the most extreme cases, lives. Take for example the Boobie Miles character in the movie Friday Night Lights. He sustains a season-ending knee injury, which also ends his chances of continuing his football career in college. And we see this same narrative play out in real life as well. Every time we see an athlete taken off the field on a stretcher, brought to the locker room for evaluations, put on the injured reserve list, and sometimes released from the team. In these cases, the athlete is viewed as a victim. But in movies, injuries aren't always tragic. In films like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and The Waterboy, injuries sometimes can serve as a comedy bit, with melodramatic, bone-breaking sound effects added to tackles. So in these cases, the injured athlete plays the role of the clown. But in real life, injuries aren't often viewed as funny, unless the injury occurs to a player who is showing off, like a kicker who blows out his knee while celebrating a routine field goal, or a nose tackle who tears his ACL while mocking the signature celebration of the quarterback that he just sacked. In these cases, some fans kind of think that the athlete had it coming, and fans see that person as a clown who got what they deserved. It's kind of like the old saying, comedy is tragedy viewed from across the street. In films, injured athletes are also treated as cowards, usually by insensitive coaches who are portrayed as villains. For example, B.A. Struthers, the football coach in North Dallas 40, is certainly annoyed that his star player, Delma Huddle, isn't willing to take another cortisone shot to mask a serious leg injury. In real life, injured athletes aren't usually labeled cowards, at least not publicly. But you can sometimes see in the nonverbals, the facial expressions, and tones of voice that coaches aren't always completely sympathetic to their players. And by praising athletes who do play through serious injuries, those who don't probably get the message. Which brings us to the 4th type of character, the hero. There are dozens of sport movies with plots that involve athletes playing through their sport injuries to emerge triumphant shortly before the closing credits roll. One of the best examples is Daniel LaRusso from The Karate Kid, whose leg is injured and then re-injured during the All Valley Karate Tournament, as the moment of truth by Survivor of Eye of the Tiger fame plays in the background with lyrics that reinforce the theme. If you can do it, get up and prove it. Get up and show them who you are. And as his girlfriend, Allie with an I, yells, "Be strong, Daniel, be strong." And it is worth noting that the Karate Kid continues to compete in the youth tournament after what appears to be a torn ACL, which is re-aggravated by his villainous opponent just before the thrilling climax. I know, it's just a movie. But movies like Karate Kid reinforce societal values related to playing through injuries. And these values were best articulated by Jay Coakley, a sports sociologist who described 4 aspects of what he called the sport ethic. According to Jay Coakley, the sport ethic is a set of norms that many people in power and performance sports have accepted as the dominant criteria for defining what it means to be an athlete and to successfully claim an identity as an athlete. First, an athlete makes sacrifices for the game, meaning their commitment is unwavering and they are willing to make sacrifices because they put their love of the game above all else. Second, an athlete strives for distinction. always trying to push the limits in pursuit of winning and breaking records, following the Olympic motto, Citius Altius Fortius, swifter, higher, stronger. Third, an athlete accepts risks and plays through pain. They're not willing to give in to fear, and they rationalize their decisions by pointing out that everyone else is doing it, as in, it's rugby, or that's just gymnastics. Fourth, an athlete accepts no limits in the pursuit of possibilities. So they see injuries, no matter how severe, as merely obstacles to overcome. So these are values that many athletes buy into, and these are values that are reinforced not only in feature films, but in coverage of college and professional sports. For example, during the 2004 playoffs, Boston Red Sox pitcher Curt Schilling injured a tendon in his ankle, and while pitching in the ALCS and the ALDS, the sutures in Schilling's ankle came loose, and his sock became soaked in blood. And the commentators applauded his bravery and his gutsy, heroic performance, in much the same way that football commentators applauded Brett Favre's penchant for playing through injuries throughout his entire career. And they're not alone. 49ers safety Ronnie Lott is legendary for having a finger amputated to avoid missing the first few games of the 1986 season. As a sport fan, watching Curt Schilling battle through pain to shut down the Angels and then the Cardinals in the 2004 playoffs was inspiring. Just like seeing the Karate Kid pick himself up after his villainous opponent tried to sweep the leg and then take him out of commission. And I do think that playing through pain, or applauding those who do, is justifiable to a point. Aristotle spoke of a golden mean and suggested that every virtue could be found between two extremes. Take bravery, for example. If a soldier in a company of 100 ran away from one enemy soldier, they would be accused of cowardice. But if a lone soldier attacked a group of 100 enemy soldiers on his own, the soldier might be accused of stupidity. But somewhere in the middle, you find bravery. In sport, if an athlete isn't willing to play through a few bumps and bruises, they might be what molecular biologists call a wimp. But if an athlete totally ignores the possibility that continuing to play might make things worse and could lead to chronic mobility or cognitive issues, describing that athlete as brave or courageous might not be the best descriptors. So where do we draw the line? I noticed that by asking this question, we've left the domain of psychology and sociology and entered the realm of philosophy and morality. But this is an important question to ask because you might find yourself in a position where you need to answer this question. For me, the answer is contingent on the probability and possible severity of further injury. If an athlete is at risk of pain but is not at risk of further injury, I might encourage the player to continue to play. But if by playing the athlete might be risking exasperating an injury that could get worse, but could not conceivably lead to chronic mobility or cognitive issues, I wouldn't encourage the athlete to continue to play, but I might allow them to if they insisted. But if by playing the injury could be exasperated to the extent that the athlete might have problems walking or thinking, or might endure chronic pain throughout their lives, I would not allow the athlete to continue to play, no matter how much they pleaded to re-enter the game. Coaches sometimes need to make these decisions, and often in the heat of the moment. So during a time of calm deliberation, every coach needs to figure out where they draw the line so that their decisions are not driven by impulse and emotion and well, it's hockey or that's just gymnastics way of rationalizing dumb decisions. The values summarized by Jay Coakley's sport ethic are alive and well, but recently the narrative has changed somewhat as the generation of NFL players now in their 40s and 50s who were once worshipped for sacrificing their bodies for the amusement of others are voicing their concerns, especially regarding the effects of repeated head injuries. The way coaches view injured players influences the way they treat injured players. Some coaches see injured players as victims who need to be protected and cared for. Some coaches see injured players as cowards who are unwilling to make sacrifices and endure pain for the sake of the team. And in casting their injured players, coaches are also casting themselves in the ongoing story that is sport, and deciding whether they will be remembered as heroes or as villains.